Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, listen, no matter how you're consuming the product. We appreciate you for being here. We've got a really good show in store for you this week. We've got all AFL and all off-the-wall offensive lineman Jamezz Kimbrough from the Billings Outlaws on the show to talk about his football journey, his arena football career, the Billings season in 2024, and some other things that he's working on off the field that we'll dive into in the interview, as well as what 2025 looks like for Jamezz and all the stuff that he's got going on. So really had a great conversation with him and been going back and forth with him on socials for a little bit now. So glad I was finally able to get him on the show and talk shop for a little bit. After that, we'll dive into some AF1 news, including the live stream that we had last week with Jeff Fisher and Adam Pelletier, and talk about some of that, and then talk about some of the transactions that we didn't necessarily get to in that live show last week and some of the things that have happened since then. And then we'll dive into the IFL and some of the news of things that have been announced, some behind the scenes stuff that we've seen on socials, as well as some player announcements in that league as well. But before we dive into any of that, please go give us a follow on our socials at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on Instagram, we're on X/Twitter, we're on TikTok, we're on all the things. So go give us a follow on there and let me know that you listen to the show with Jamezz, and come say hi, come like a post or two, share a post or two, help your boy out a little bit. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. I think we're almost at 100 subscribers on the channel, which is really awesome. We've really been growing it out, brick by brick, week by week. We're getting there. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go to that show page and rate it 5 stars, preferably. Share it with a friend that you think might like it. And let's continue to grow this thing out. I'm super excited for the direction that the show and the brand of Off the Wall is taking. And it's because of the support from people like you, like the viewer at home. I feel like PBS right now saying that. Viewers like you. But it's all because of what we're putting out, people consuming the content and sharing it with people. So really appreciate the love and support so far. And speaking of love and support, go follow Jamezz. We'll talk about some of the stuff that he's got going on off the field, but let's not waste any more time. Here's Jamezz Kimbrough. Joining us on the show this week, we have one of the very best offensive linemen in arena football. He is a 2024 All-AFL second team. He's an all off the wall first team, and he is an ArenaBowl champion, and his name is Jamezz Kimbrough. Jamezz, thank you so much for hopping on the show. How's the off season treating you as we inch closer and closer to 2025?
Yeah, thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me on your platform. I
Yeah.
have a lot of respect for your platform. The off season has been good. It's been a lot of work, a lot of training. Going to different camps, things like that. Trying to put yourself out there.
Right.
Um, you know, just closely watching the AF1 pages, seeing what's going on with the league,
Right.
different transactions and whatnot. So yeah, but the main thing is just really focusing on myself, get myself ready to be better than I was last year.
And that's a pretty good baseline to be building off of. So I'm excited to see if you can get better and better off of a very impressive 2024 campaign. But before we dive too far into arena football, tell us a little bit about your football journey as a whole and what led you to arena football.
Yeah. So my football journey, I came out class of 2017 from the illustrious home of Flossmoor High School. Had a couple offers, I think 7 to 8 Division I offers. Went to Central Michigan. Played at Central Michigan from basically 2017 to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Had a great experience. Won, what was named All League my last year. There, I played defensive tackle at Central Michigan. I played guard. And then, I ended up getting injured 2018, sat out 2019, came back 2020, and I came back as a center. And 2020 was a little tough for me.
Yeah.
With coming back from the injury, like mentally, like that was the biggest hurdle. And then COVID with the season being cut off, put back on, cut off, put back on. It was a lot of mental obstacles. But yeah, 2020 and then 2021, that was my junior year. I played outstanding. We went to the Sun Bowl, won the Sun Bowl, beat a Power 5 team.
Yeah.
Came out class of 2022. I finished 22, and then didn't get picked up in the draft. Was waiting around, Didn't get any phone calls. I actually got a call from the Iowa Barnstormers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, I was signed to the Iowa Barnstormers for probably a month or two.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a message from director of player personnel from the Outlaws last year. And he asked me, could he talk or could we talk? And then we went from there, ended up going to Billings. And yeah, that's how we got to Montana.
Well, it certainly worked out for you. It seems like going to Billings was the best decision for you, both on and off the field. But before we dive too far into the arena world, wanted to talk a little MACtion with you. What was it like playing for Coach McElwain and those midweek MACtion games? Like, is it weird suiting up on a Tuesday or Wednesday night?
Yeah, it is definitely. It's definitely different. And speaking of Coach Mac, he just retired.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, he had a great career. All the things he did at Alabama, the things he did at University of Florida,
Yeah,
Colorado State. Turning that program around, and he came to Central Michigan, turned our program into a championship program.
yeah,
And yeah, MACtion, it was interesting. It was a great opportunity because we got to play prime time on ESPN.
yeah,
All of our games were streamed and things like that, but it's different when you could tell your family, hey, just turn to Sports Center. You'll see us on there.
yeah.
So that was I think the best thing, getting that primetime spotlight, for the NFL and different leagues to watch the MAC. And I think the toughest thing was just, like you said, getting your body prepared to play on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, those are work days now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Saturday was always a work day, but more so a practice day.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And then getting your mind ready to play a game on Tuesday and Wednesday, it probably takes a week or so, but
right.
That's why the coaches got to stick to the schedule. You just got to move things around different days. So it was great. It was great.
Yeah, those national television spots. It's funny to hear you say, like, yeah, just turn on ESPN, because you were probably having to say, like, all right, it's on ESPN Plus, download the app, and then go to this game and then flip through. It's like, no. Straight up channel 29, channel 20, whatever channel it is, it's that one. We're on the national one, which is awesome. So those games were so much fun, and kind of like arena football, anything can happen in those MACtion games. Was there a specific game that sticks out to you that you remember fondly from your days at Central Michigan?
A game. Well, of course, I would say 2021 when we beat Western Michigan.
Yeah.
Got to throw that in there. That was a great game. But I would say our bowl game in 2021, that same year,
mm-hmm.
we played in El Paso, Texas. We were scheduled to play Boise. Boise ended up dropping out from COVID. Essentially, and that's what happened. And then, we played Washington State, Wazoo.
Yeah.
We played Wazoo, and it was a great game. Just playing next to the mountains. That was my first time, I think, playing next to mountains and whatnot.
That's in El Paso? Is that right?
Yep, El Paso.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up playing there, and it was a great experience. There was a lot of things going on, switching to bowl games.
Right.
It was a great experience with the team. A lot of memories that we made. Going out there, winning that bowl game, was a great experience.
Yeah, good little business trip with the crew out to El Paso. So you go from playing those MACtion games where a lot of those games were cold, like we're talking 20, 30 degrees, but then you go from that to playing in a temperature controlled indoor facility with arena football. What was your very first exposure to arena football? Did you know about it growing up, or was the door that cracked open to get with Iowa your first real exposure to it?
That's a great question, because I went to a Chicago Rush game when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was my first professional football game. It was
nice.
I think with maybe my little league football team, they took us, and I just remember being in that hallway when the players was walking through, kind of like their tunnel, and we was just sitting there, shaking their hands as they walked past, and they just looked like so huge. Paws, like they was like tall, whatnot, and it was just like, dang, like this is what professional football players look like.
Yeah, no kidding.
I would say that was my first experience with it. But yeah, I honestly didn't even really think about it. It was, the NFL, UFL, well, at that time, XFL,
Yeah.
USFL, CFL, and I honestly didn't even think about the opportunity of indoor football.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that, Iowa reached out when they did, and things happened.
Yeah, and it's we've seen a bunch of examples of it recently, historically, of players just getting that opportunity in the indoor arena game and working their way up and getting that opportunity in the outdoor game. So I think
Yeah,
it's great to see, and the opportunity is there. You just got to keep grinding away at it and see what happens. Like I think what we got Turpin for the Cowboys. He's a great example of that, where he just kind of rose through the ranks over the past 3 4 years, and he's returning a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown on Sunday. So it's fine to see how that can sometimes work out.
yeah, definitely possible. It just depends, if you dedicated to stay in that fight and continue to pursue your goals.
Yeah, 100%. So, what were some of the big adjustments you had to make at the center position in arena football? Because I think center is oftentimes an overlooked position in all of football, let alone arena football. When you think about it, center's touching the ball every single play. So, you need him to be a good part of your offense.
Definitely. It was an adjustment for sure, but I didn't allow it to be too much because I seen that the receivers and defensive backs had even more of an adjustment
Yeah.
coming from the outdoor game to the indoor game. We had a lot of young guys on the team.
Hmm.
Obviously, we had a lot of young guys, so it was an adjustment period for everybody. I feel like for offensive line and defensive line, it's maybe the simplest transition,
Right.
but it's definitely different in terms of spacing. It's not as much space. Um, it's really man on man. It's good on good.
Yeah.
One on one for the most part. Different things like that. But it's definitely an art to it. Football is an art. Sports is art, and arena football is definitely an art. So it took some time. It took a couple of weeks of game reps, and then you kind of get your feel for it and get comfortable with it. But it was different. But the DBs got it harder than we do. So I ain't gonna.
Yeah, with the O line, it's like you're like you said, it's one on one, and at times it feels like you're fighting in a phone booth where it's like there's not a lot of room for the other person to go, so you're just locked in and going after it. So, yeah, center and offensive line in general, those are those positions where you don't get a ton of shine usually unless something goes wrong, where like you get a holding penalty, you get like a false start penalty. So,
Mhm.
being able to be an integral part of that 2024 Billings team was great to see.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a blessing. Just offensive line, period. You don't
Right.
get too much recognition unless, like you said, you messing up, holding calls, quarterback getting hit. Then it's like,
Yeah.
what's up with the O line? But when the running back's not getting touched for 40 yards, then it's just
Nobody says anything. Yeah.
so it's just one of those things that come with the game. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
yeah,
When you can drive a semi truck through the hole that the offensive line makes,
you
you don't
know,
hear a thing, right?
yeah, yeah. But the
So
guys who know, the guys who know, they know.
they know exactly. Yeah. So now this isn't a Billings Outlaws podcast, but despite the love that I've shown, but I thoroughly enjoyed that 2024 Outlaws team and that you are part of. Talk to me about how that group on offense came together and what made it all work for y'all.
It was the practice and the level of intensity that we had to practice at. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, just my fault. I had a lot of flashbacks from practice. Like Coach Walker, he's intense, and we had a lot of moments in practice where it was challenging mentally, but it was needed, and it
Yeah.
showed in games that it did come to fruition. But we gelled together on the field and off the field. I think that was a big thing.
Yeah.
We were a close knit group. We did everything together. Our quarterback Isaac Harker, he put a lot of time into film study. He watched a lot of film.
Hmm.
He would come to the first meeting of that week. We would put in the install for the team with a list of things that he'd been watching from this team, their tendencies, what the DBs like to do. Like this guy
Okay.
does this guy does that. He likes to backpedal like this. And when your quarterback come into the room in the beginning of the week with all this information, and he's the one standing up telling everybody, "This is what they do. This is how they are, and this is how we're gonna beat
Yeah,
them. This is how we're gonna beat them." It gives
that's
you that
great.
confidence, and it's like, okay, he taking it serious. We all taking it serious, but that's just what a good leader does. And our offensive line, we had a great offensive line. Did our
Uh-huh.
thing, Peyton and Terrence, myself, and the defense did what the defense does. Coach Walker, he take a lot of pride in the defense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The more arena film I've been watching is like, if you have a decent defense or a good defense, you can win a lot of games.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it
Yeah, I
was great.
know. I know some arena football purists, some of the old heads that are love a good 65, 70 game. They were not big fans of Billings last year, but you guys played fundamental football, and some of the most exciting games of the entire year included the Outlaws. So that's not by accident. So yeah, you guys definitely made it work.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great season. It was a season of learning for everybody.
Right.
A lot of ups and downs, just with the league. But even while all of that was happening, we were kind of here the whole time. We were steady. That's a shout out to our coaches and Steve
Yeah.
Titus. Steve. They made sure everything was smooth sailing, while the things on the outside, was kind of stormy.
Yeah, so speaking on that offense, there were dudes all over the field. I mean, you talked about it. You talked about Harker, Swoboda, Brown, Harvey. Then, like you said, the entire O line.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a specific point in the season where it started to feel like, okay, this group is really starting to gel and really starting to mesh together?
Was it a specific point in that season? I
Yeah,
think
was there a specific game or a specific moment where you're like, okay, we got something here?
and I heard Coach Walker say this, and I agree with it. I think it was the West Texas game,
Yeah,
because at that point, I think that was our second away game. And at that point, the best team that we play, in my opinion, at what, week 5, 6, like
hmm
that. And West Texas was a great team. They had a great defense. They had some explosive skill players, and
yeah,
playing that away game and battling back, because we didn't start off great. We started off a little rocky, but we picked it up. We fought back,
right.
and we ended up winning that game and controlling that game. So I think that point was like, okay, we could go there and play with one of the best teams in the league, because a lot of people were saying, we haven't played anybody. The
Yeah.
Outlaws are only 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 because of their stuff,
Uh-huh.
because of the guys that they play. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, okay. And then it was just, as the season kept progressing, it was like, okay, this team is actually legit, and
Yeah.
it's not a fluke.
Yeah, there's kind of two sides to that where it's like, okay, you can make that argument, but then you can also say the other teams don't look good because they had to play Billings. So maybe those teams are better than we realize, but they just ran into the Outlaws at the wrong week, right? So there's two sides to that, which I like to challenge some people on, but that's neither here nor there. So what was it like being led by Coach Bonner on offense? He has such a rich history with the sport as a player, a broadcaster, and a coach, and he's seen it all through the years.
Yeah, Coach Bonner, he's a great leader. He was the perfect offensive coordinator, and not even offensive coordinator, just the perfect person to be with our team, because
Right.
Coach Walker, he's like always is heating up, better not do the wrong thing, he might snap. And then
Yeah.
Coach Bonner was the guy that was the good cop, I guess good cop, bad cop. He was the even killed. He would still get on us and tell us what we need to do, but it'd be like, okay, a calm voice, somebody reassuring while it's a lot of chaos going on. That
Yeah.
was. But in terms of X's and O's, I feel like he was the best at it. We all did our research on Coach Bonner throughout the season as players. We heard the stories. We went back and watched. Same with Coach Walker, and we realized, oh yeah, like the stories is true. Like he was really like that.
Yeah.
6 foot plus quarterback. It was 6'4", something like that. He's a
Yeah.
lefty. He could spin it. And when we watched the ArenaBowl that he was in, it was one that he lost. I'm sorry, coach. It was one
Mhm.
that he lost. But we could see how he was commanding the offense, how he was talking to the linemen, how he was talking to
Yeah.
the receivers. So it was easy to follow him, easy to listen. Same with Coach Walker, because they did it before. It's proven, they won championships before, so it wasn't like, like, no, these dudes don't know what they're talking about. No,
Yeah,
they do know what they're talking about,
they were
and
like that. Yeah.
basically they was like that, simply put.
Yeah, that was actually my next question when I had Hunter on a few months ago. That he talked about that moment where everyone kind of did their own independent research. They were like, "Oh, they were those guys. Like
Mhm.
they were the ones when they were playing." So, and it's no surprise to see that translated very well with this past year's Outlaws team because they look like those like your team looked like those late '90s Rattlers teams, and
Okay,
of
now
course they would. Of course they would.
a question for you, because I wanted to ask you that,
Yeah.
because I've heard you say that. Like, in what way do you find that comparison from, like, the way that we play in those '90s teams?
So to me, it was primarily the play calling and how plays were executed. A lot of teams in the AFL last season, they tried to get a little too cute. They tried to air it out too much. They tried to do a little too much of the outdoor stuff. But arena football has 30 years of videos and plays and games to look back on of things that work schematically. And so like there was a play, I think it was against Albany the first time where I think Harvey had an end around where it was like a little
Mhm.
a little hezzy and then a end around to the outside. Like that was something that those late 90s Rattlers teams did, but nobody else in the league was doing last year. They were doing a more so snap to the quarterback and try to do like a speed or power to the outside. So that's what I mean by that, where they just had the characteristics that matched the style of football that was in those late 90s.
Got you. Okay, no, that definitely makes sense. I have been meaning to ask you that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, because I did a decent amount of research on certain games, but not a whole bunch in the '90s. Actually, a couple of days ago, I did. For some reason, I started watching the Albany games when they're 2019,
Uh-huh.
2020, 2022, they championship games. I was
Yeah.
scrolling. I was trying to watch a game from last season. Then I seen these Albany Empire championship games. I'm like, hold on, let me look into these. And
Yeah, right. Yeah.
it's real interesting to watch those games. That's a
Yeah,
great.
and there's so many different styles out there of arena ball and indoor ball, and it's funny to see how the more the game evolves, the more traditional stuff sticks out. So it's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel sometimes. Like the
Yeah,
playbook is there. You just got to execute it, right? So
yeah.
but yeah, we got something in the works where I think we're gonna dive into some more old games, so to speak. So that's a little teaser for the people out there, and I'll tell you about that after we're done here. Um, but where was I here? So now, anytime I have somebody from the 2024 Arena Bowl on, I'm morally obligated to ask about the brawl at the mall, about that experience.
Yeah.
What were your first reactions to hearing about that, and what will you remember the most about that game and about that day?
Well, first, my first thoughts when I seen it on social media, I searched it up and I was like, how are we gonna play here? And the more I researched it, I seen that they had games there and they had some prior arena football games there back in the day. And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, it might be something to it. And I seen like the architecture of it, how it was built. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay, I could picture, with the fans around that, that might be nice.
yeah,
And honestly, it was a great experience. The field was perfect. Having that glass ceiling, being able to look up through the ceiling, that was perfect.
yeah,
Um, the crowd, the fans, all the fans that traveled, appreciate y'all. It was a great experience. Yeah, I have no complaints. Like, it was different. Being able to look up directly and see fans. Obviously in college we got big
yeah.
stadiums, but not NFL big stadiums. But
They're not on top of you like that. Yeah,
yeah, they're not right on top of you. So after you
yeah.
score, you got the Albany fans looking down on you,
Uh-huh.
saying what they saying, and then you got the Billings fans on the other side cheering for you. It
Right.
was a good experience. It's something I'll never forget. And then you asked the part, like the most memorable part was
Yeah, yeah.
honestly at the end, after we won the game and hearing that song, "We Are the Champions." It's a song I've heard before, but it was like it felt like the song was on on a loop for like 10 minutes, 15
Yeah.
minutes. That's just all I kept hearing. And
It hits a little bit different when you're in that situation, right?
yeah, definitely. You're just thinking about everything you had to go through, all the work you had to put in,
Yeah.
all of those challenges you had to get through. And then just hearing that, it was like, yeah, everything was worth it. All the sacrifices, it was worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What was there a moment where you looked around and you're like, we're really in a mall right now? Like what is happening? Did you have any of those moments in the game, or were you totally locked in?
In the game, nah, not in the game. I didn't have those moments because it was just first
Yep,
down, first
blinders up.
down.
Yep.
Yeah, but I would say really when I had that experience was just the media day. I think that was the day before the game. We had the
Hmm.
media day, being up there, and then walking to the field. Getting that first feel of the field, getting that first walk out there. I think that was like, hey, we really about to play in the mall. But just like Coach Walker said, just it's football. It's another game at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
just go out there, have fun. When he broke it down like that, I think it made it easier for everybody just to relax and not focus on it being a mall, not focus on the outside stuff. Just focus
Yeah.
on the game.
Yeah, because it was a spectacle, and it was a little bizarre now that we look back on it, but it was a great experience. I think it was a good way to cap off that season and end it on as positive of a note as possible.
Yeah.
Like you said, given everything that you guys had to go through and off the field nonsense, some on the field nonsense that you had to put up with as well. So I think it was a good little bow on the season. Um, we'll see if it comes back. I don't think it will, but we'll have to see. So tell me about More Vibez, More Love. I listened to the Billings Outlaws coaches show from this past season, and I heard a little bit about it. But for those that don't know what is it, and how did you get started with it?
Yeah, so More Vibez, More Love. It's a brand that I started, back in 2019, 2020. When I was younger, I always wanted to have my own brand,
Hmm.
whether it was a clothing brand or like a sports brand. Um, and my friend, he had passed from an overdose. His name was Jared Higgins. You
Hmm.
know, the world knows him as Juice World.
Yeah.
Real popular artist. And we met freshman year of high school. I was like 13, he was 14. Real close friends, and he battled with mental health and addiction, like I said. So I was already having like the idea to do something like that along those lines before he passed, and then once he passed, it was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely what we're doing. More vibes, more love. Create something that can help people, something that can inspire people, things like that. Try to allow myself to get my creativity out there.
Yeah.
Just be like a positive impact to people, positive, role model. And yeah, that's more vibes, more love. Not like plugging anything here. Just
No, please plug it away. Plug away. Yes.
yeah,
I
no,
like it.
these are just prototypes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Some samples that you'll probably see in 2025.
Awesome. Yeah. So what are some things you've done with the brand already, and what are some things you're looking to do with the brand going forward?
Yeah, so far, I've went to some schools, talked to schools, talked to students in the schools, particularly like seniors, about like mental health,
Yeah.
mental fortitude. Why it's important to have good coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
because in life you're gonna go through things, and no matter what age you are. So the main thing is not like to be concerned about going through things, but just be worried about how you will bounce back
Right.
from what's happening. So going to schools, doing these community outreach things, giving back to the community, clothes, hosting events. I plan to host some more events in the future. Get a building, like a property, have
Yeah.
more vibes, more love, facilities, things like that.
Yeah.
Just keep opening up doors for other people, opening up more resources for the people who need it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great message to have, and a great thing to take action on.
Yeah,
And it's cool to see you get involved with something like that off the field. And now I saw you recently post about the third annual More Vibes, More Love Christmas clothing drive.
yeah.
Tell me about that. How can people get involved with that?
Yeah, so we're doing just like you said, another Christmas clothing drive for the third year. Just something that I wanted to do to give back. You know, I've been blessed with so much. The people around me have been blessed with so much. So just the opportunity to give back to those who need it. You can follow the Instagram, More Vibez More Love. Donate any clothing and accessories that you would like, any warm weather accessories for somebody who might need it,
Yeah.
blankets, hats, coats. We'll also be going to the Goodwill, buying things, blankets, you know, things like that. So if you don't have any old clothes or anything, you could donate to our Cash App, $ More Vibes, and that money be used to purchase items from Goodwill, just like
Okay.
the last couple of years. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good cause, and we'll link all that in the YouTube description, Spotify, Apple Podcast description, all that stuff. It'll be linked there. So if you're listening, scroll down just a little bit, and it'll be right there.
Yep.
So you're a very busy man, and I saw that you're also involved with some youth coaching as well with the HitSquad Academy. It's an offensive line training academy where you coach when you're not playing. How did that get started, and how's that been going?
Yeah, so HitSquad Academy is something me and my guy Desmond Bland started. We
Hmm.
both played at home with Flossmore together. But HitSquad goes well, I'm not gonna say well beyond, but it goes definitely further than just me and Desmond. You know,
Yeah.
it's a group of guys across a couple years span that played offensive line. And, you know, we went by HitSquad, and that was just our motto. And
Hmm.
you know, and it wasn't just something that we said; it was something that we lived. You know, defensive felt it. Defenses felt it.
Yeah.
Defensive lines felt it,
Yeah.
and it was a mindset. You know, it's either you was his squad or we had tap squad.
Yeah.
You know, and as an offensive lineman, you don't want to be tap squad.
No, no, no,
You know,
no.
that's the last place you want to be is tap squad. So,
Yeah.
you know, we decided, you know, it was time for us to put our information together, our resources together, give back to the youth. It's not a whole bunch of offensive line coaches or training programs where we from.
Right.
So it was important to set up something to where we could give back the information we learned from high school, college, and professional. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, just another way to be another positive role model. You know, to our community.
Yeah, you see a ton of quarterback camps, quarterback academies. You don't see much for the O linemen there, so it's awesome to see you getting involved with that and helping nurture some of those young athletes that want to be O linemen growing up.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So it's awesome to hear about the hard work you're doing on field, off the field. You've got a lot going on. All the links to all the stuff that we talked about today is going to be in that YouTube subscription, Apple Podcast subscription, Spotify, all that stuff. So, what's next? What's next for you in 2025, and how can people follow you on socials?
What's next? So real quick, more vibes, more love. I'm gonna be dropping some clothes here towards the end of the year. Uh,
Yes.
I took my website down because everything sold out. We got sold out everything, but the website is www.morevibes.net.
Okay.
Uh, Vibes with a Z. Um, www.morevibes.net, and I'll be putting my website back up before the year is over with
Okay.
some
Cool.
posts, with some more clothes and things like that. My Instagram is jkimbrough_50,
Okay.
KIBRO_50. And you said, what am I looking forward to 2025?
Yeah. What can people look forward to seeing from Jamezz in 2025?
You know, just my best effort every time I get the chance to go play football. Um, you know, a lot from the Billings Outlaws, a lot from More Vibez, More Love, a lot of
Yeah.
different things out there. HitSquad Academy as well. You know, just me doing my part to leave my impact. You know, just try to be a light onto other people, things like that. Yeah, 2025, I feel like it's going to be a great year. You know, I'm very optimistic.
Yeah.
I had that feeling coming into 2024, and you know, 2024 has been a great year. You know, I've been blessed, a lot of great things happening, and
Yeah.
I think the same thing for next year. You know, I'm excited.
Let's go. Love to hear it. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point in the future, but best of luck in 2025, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
I appreciate that. Hey, and then thank you to you for putting this platform together for the athletes. You know, it's not a whole bunch of platforms that broadcast arena football. You know, it's only my second year into it, but you know, I'm kind of
Yeah.
seeing how everything is and whatnot. So, you know, big shout out to you and off the wall. You know, y'all doing your thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my part out here. So support the game that I love any way I can. So, all right, thank you so much, man.
Appreciate you.
Big thanks again to Jamezz for joining the show and talking about all the stuff he's got going on off the field with More Vibes, More Love, the HitSquad Academy, and of course, what we can look forward to in 2025 and beyond. So I think he's one of those guys that has a chance to has a really strong chance of getting back into the outdoor game if the right opportunity presents itself, and if he can continue to build off of that 2024 season he had in Billings. He's going to be one of the best offensive linemen in arena football again in 2025. So I'm super excited to see him continue to grow from here. So diving into AF1, last week AF1 announced their schedule, and of course, if you happen to see last week, we live streamed it or we simulcasted on the channel, and then also had a live show for the first time ever last week on the YouTube. That we eventually put out as a podcast as well, where we had Jeff Fisher, who's the AF1 commissioner, and the AF1 director of communications, Adam Pelletier, on to talk about AF1, not just for 2025, but beyond 2025 as well, with Commissioner Fisher, and then talking about some players, some teams that we think are going to make an impact with Adam Pelletier. So if you haven't watched that show, please go do so after. All right, or you can either press pause, go watch it, then come back and press play, or finish this episode first, then go back and watch it. One of the two. And it was a really fun evening across the arena football community, not just on this channel or this show, but across some of the other content creators' channels and shows as well. A ton of interviews that took place across the different shows in the arena football community. So go check those out as well. If you go to X/Twitter, I made a threading all the shows where you can all watch them. So go check that out and go watch all the interviews. All the interviews were really great, and it was really cool to see the arena football community come together for a day like that and really provide a lot of content and a lot of positive exposure for this league, and that's going into their inaugural season in 2025. So starting with some player transactions, we'll start in Billings, and they're bringing back wide receiver linebacker Karance Higgins. He was one of the more underrated wide receivers in 2024, in my opinion, due to some injuries that he had and what sidelined him towards the end of the year. But this will be a big boost for the Outlaws, especially with DJ Harvey, who played that physical wide receiver, jack linebacker role all throughout the season and played it really, really well. He's in Orlando now. So there's that void in Billings that hopefully Karance will be able to fulfill. And if he can have a full year injury free or as injury free as possible, really looking forward to seeing what type of bounce back he can have this upcoming season. Billings is going to be in a little bit of a rebuild in 2025. Coach Cedric Walker announced on Rebound Off the Net that Sed Bonner, who was the offensive coordinator for 2024, will not be returning to the team in 2025 to spend a little bit more time with his family. So we'll see who the Outlaws end up bringing in for offensive play calling duties, but knowing Coach Walker and knowing the way that Billings runs things, it's going to be a good hire. It's going to be a good fit, and Billings is going to be a contender yet again. And jumping over to Corpus Christi. So Corpus Christi was announced as a team, I think the last time we had a non-live show, like I think it was episode 28 a couple weeks back. But since that episode aired and since they were announced as a team, they've had a bunch of players announced as signing with them, including offensive lineman Terrence Ames Jr. and defensive back Joe Powell. So TA played for Billings last season. He was a very charismatic part of that Billings Outlaws offensive line, and he was a pivotal part of it as well, as we talked about with Jamezz a little bit earlier. But defensive back Joe Powell, he's a veteran of the indoor and arena football game for years and years, and he should bring a great veteran presence to that Tritons locker room, where they're basically an expansion team. Did they play last season? Yes, they did. They played last year in a much smaller league before going to the NAL. Things and stuff happened. They left the NAL, and now they're in AF1. So they're, all intents and purposes, they're an expansion team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of mold things and get things figured out as a franchise, as a team, as a coaching staff, as a pool of players. But bringing in a couple guys like that is a good way to start, especially with some of the experience that they've had last season and from years prior. Now, over in Wilkes-Barre, they announced their head coach. So they finally announced their head coach, Sean Leota. He was slated to be the offensive coordinator for the Wheeling Miners in the NAL in 2025, but he jumped over and took the job with Wilkes-Barre. It wasn't looking great for Wilkes-Barre there for a minute. They managed to get everything they need to get done to get the thumbs up and be good to go for 2025. So I'm super excited to see what they can do. But Coach Leota, he brings a lot of offensive prowess with him. He's a veteran of the indoor game. He's been coaching indoor offenses for at least a decade at this point. And all of his offenses have one thing in common. They score a lot of points. And that is going to be of utmost importance. Duh, more points is better in arena football, but especially in that Eastern division that they're in, where Albany's going to score a ton of points. Orlando's going to score a ton of points. Don't know a lot about Nashville at this point, but if last season is any indication of how Nashville could potentially be next year, they're going to score a lot of points. So the East Division, you might be looking at a ton of 60, 50 games, 70, 60 games. You're going to see a lot of firepower in that Eastern Division. Then another team that was announced right before schedules dropped is the Arizona Bandits. They've been starting to build out their roster as well, and they're starting on the defensive side of the ball. So we've seen that with a couple different teams where they'll start off with like their defensive line, they'll start off with their defensive backs, depending on how things shake out. But the first player that the Bandits signed was Jeremiah Spicer, who is a linebacker who spent some time in ArenaBowl over the past couple years. And then they also signed defensive lineman Ulrich Jones. So he has been he's a very, very talented veteran of the indoor game. He's a massive human. I think he's like 6'7". He blocked a couple field goals for Jacksonville last season, and he's a presence on that defensive line, a real Calais Campbell type of presence that he brings to every defensive line in every locker room that he's a part of. And both are big physical defenders, both meaning Spicer and Jones, both big physical defenders who have had success in the indoor and arena game. So really looking forward to seeing how they can get the Bandits franchise started on the right foot. Should be hearing some news about the Bandits coaching staff very, very soon, or so I've been told. I don't know who, but I think we have a decent indication of who that might be, but it might be getting announced here sooner than later. So we'll see how that shakes out. But a great start for Arizona in terms of building out that defense, and we'll see what they can do on the offensive side of the ball. And lastly, in Oregon, wide receiver Jordan Pouncey is coming back to the state of Oregon. Last year, he spent some time with the Black Bears before the Black Bear situation did what it did. And then he went over to the Washington Wolfpack. But he is back with the Oregon Lightning. He's back with Coach Chuck Jones. And he was a very dynamic wide receiver for Washington down the stretch. And he really opened up that Washington offense. I think kind of made things happen and made things work for the Wolfpack, where they got off to a very slow start on offense and were kind of figuring things out as the season went on. And towards the end of the year, they really started to click and started to get competitive in some ball games. And it was because of players like Jordan Pouncey. So Jordan Pouncey going back to Oregon, this time with the Lightning, getting reunited with Coach Chuck Jones. That Oregon Black Bears roster from 2024 was a very talented roster. And it looks like Chuck Jones is continuing to build and develop a roster that is going to be very competitive, and you could say on par with what he built last season as he continues to build up the repertoire and he continues to build this roster of guys. And so really looking forward to seeing who else they add to that roster. But Jordan Pouncey, wide receiver, that's a very, very good start. Shifting over to the IFL, we'll start with the Massachusetts Pirates, and Massachusetts finally has their head coach in place. So Amir Ismail is back at the helm for the Pirates, where he was the first head coach in team history in 2018. So he was the head coach way back when in their debut season in the NAL. Now he'll be the head coach for them in 2025 in the IFL. So Pirates have not had the same head coach for 2 consecutive years since forming, which is pretty surprising just because they've been so successful on the field. And that's with a new head coaching staff or a new head coach and a modified coaching staff every year. And hopefully Coach Ismail will be around for the long haul this time, because if the Pirates are as competitive as they have been, switching things up every single year, imagine what they can be if they start to get a little bit more consistency and start to really improve and further develop that Pirates culture that they have there. So, great get for the Pirates. I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to build out their roster, specifically on offense. We've seen a lot of pieces on defense being announced, and with Coach Griggs being announced for defensive duties, and then some of the defensive backs already being announced, some linebackers being announced. Haven't heard a lot on the offensive side of the ball. So now that Ismail is in place, maybe we'll start to see some of those offensive pieces fall into place. Staying in the Eastern Conference, but moving over to Green Bay, they're bringing back some pieces from last season, including defensive lineman Rafiq Abdul-Wahid, wide receiver Andre Williams, and defensive back Kevin Ransom. So still some question marks on offense at quarterback and running back heading into December, but still plenty of time before training camp opens up, plenty of time to get that stuff sorted out. But Green Bay has a little bit of a rebuild ahead of them, with Ravarius Rivers going to the UFL, Sean Mustin going to the CFL. So those are pivotal pieces of the defense that they're going to need to find answers for. But bringing back players like Rafiq Abdul-Wahid and Kevin Ransom, that's a good start to get some continuity from last season and help those players that get brought in to fill some of those voids left behind by some of those veteran players that have moved on, and help that defense out and hopefully pick up where they left off in 2024. Then heading a little south down to Iowa, the Iowa Barnstormers are bringing back defensive lineman Tyler Tate and kicker Gabriel Rui. Tate was one of the most impressive rookies to me in all of the IFL last year and all of indoor football, really. Very much looking forward to seeing how he can make a further jump in 2025. And it feels like 2024 was a bit of a adjustment for him, but he still was very dominant and was still making a ton of tackles for loss, still getting in the backfield, still being disruptive. So if now that he has that year under his belt, if he can come back and further improve on that, I would not be surprised to see an all IFL caliber year out of Mr. Tate. And then Gabe Rui, he is just an absolute machine out there when it comes to kicking and comes to scoring points. He accounted for 154 points on the year, averaging 9.6 per game. That's extra points, field goals, deuces, all that stuff. So he is a pivotal part of this Iowa Barnstormers offense and this team and special teams and everything, because for Iowa last season, they had a lot of trouble getting started on offense for the first quarter, first half of the season. And Gabe Rui was really the only thing keeping them in some of these games that they were in, and kept them in a lot more games than they had any business being in. So the fact that he's back after an all IFL first team season last year, you love to see the continuity, especially at the kicker position. I mean, we talked about it with Ernesto Lacayo a few weeks back. There's only a couple guys in the IFL that are true veteran kickers that you can really, really lean on, and Gabriel Rui is for sure one of those guys. And then heading out west to Vegas, the Vegas Nighthawks announced they're bringing back some big pieces from last year. Antonio Wimbush at running back, defensive back James Caesar, and then defensive lineman Maurice Jackson. So those are three big names for Vegas that they're getting back. And you add that to the returning group that is already including Jerome Johnson at quarterback, Quentin Randolph at wide receiver, and then Mikhail Calhoun at defensive back. And then you mix in some free agents that they signed, like Tamarian Terry. And this offense they're going to be scary. There's a reason why they call Tamarian Terry Scary Terry, because every offense he's a part of instantly gets better. So this Vegas team is going to be poised for another run in the West, and the West is going to be hyper competitive yet again. But Vegas is positioning themselves very well to pick up where they left off in 2024 and hopefully improve down the stretch. They had that run to start the season where they were 7-0 and just looking absolutely unstoppable. Hit a bit of a skid in the middle of the season, then finish strong. Hopefully, we'll see more of those first 7 games of Vegas throughout the entire 16-game season. And the last team I wanted to touch on in the IFL was Fishers. So Fishers Freight, I'm just really impressed with the program that they're building with Dixie Wooten at the helm. The arena just opened brand new. Coach Wooten has been sharing some of the behind the scenes stuff on his socials. of the facilities, of the different amenities, of the players' lounge, of this, of that. It really looks like Fishers is setting the standard for what is going to be the future of the IFL. The business model of building indoor football expansion franchises with existing successful minor league hockey franchises, it seems like a winning formula, and it seems like something that the IFL should continue to do moving forward. Because when you think about it, we had 3 teams this offseason in the IFL go dormant. And what were the reasons? It all boils down to infrastructure and logistics, doing all 3 of those teams in for one reason or another. Infrastructure and logistics are not just 2 buzzwords, they're 2 things that are very important in indoor and arena football and are arguably the 2 most important things for building out long-term success for these teams. And those things are much easier when it's done in partnership with another franchise, like the Indy Fuel. I think Indy Fuel is the name of the minor league hockey team that is partnered with Fisher's Freight. Instead of Fisher's Freight having to have all the social, all the marketing, all the sales, all the this, all the that under their own umbrella, they get to share some of that responsibility with that other team. So it makes sense from a resources perspective as well, where it lowers the cost of acquisition, it lowers costs in general, it lowers costs across the board, and makes life so much easier. Costs are what do these teams in, and when you make it easier in those areas, they're going to have long-term success. Like we see it in Tulsa. Tulsa follows that same model. We see it in Vegas. Vegas follows that same model. Off the field, both of those teams are 2 of the more successful teams in the IFL to this point. And there's a reason for it. So I think that model works. I think that model is something that they need to continue to pursue and continue to push for with any further expansion moving forward. And that's the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, listen, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we appreciate you doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like, subscribe, share the video with a friend. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go to the podcast page, rate us 5 stars, share the show with a friend that you want to get indoctrinated into the world of arena and indoor football. And while you're at it, make sure you're following us on all of our socials at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB on Instagram, X/Twitter, and TikTok on each of those. So go give us a follow there. Only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend an hour or so listening to me talk with Jamezz and some of the stuff that he's got going on off the field, listening to me talk about indoor and arena football transactions, and some takes that you might agree with, some takes you might not agree with. If you agree with the take, if you disagree with the take, let me know in the comments. If you agree with it, let me know in the comments. I'm trying to get some traction there, folks. But we appreciate you for taking the time to do so. So appreciate all the love and support so far. We'll see you on the socials, and we'll see you next time.